Welcome to the She's So Sweet podcast, where we interview accomplished women who have worked their way to the C-suite. I'm your host, Kristi Faltorusso, Chief Customer Officer and award-winning customer success executive. I am really, really honored to introduce today's guest. I've got Amy Volas, who is the founder and CEO at Avenue Talent Partners. Amy, welcome to our show today.
Kristi, thank you for having me.
Without a doubt, you've had to face some significant challenges and obstacles along the way. So help share some of those with me. Like, what were some of those big obstacles or challenges that you faced, and then how did you overcome them?
Oh my gosh, there are so many. I think one of the very first ones was being told that I was a guinea pig from the CEO of the company that didn't like me. And I knew he didn't like me. And quite frankly, I didn't really like him either. And I remember looking at the person that was my boss saying, how much time do I have with that individual? Like how much are we going to interact? And he said, not very much. That's what I'm here for. And that, that was an important conversation to have. And while he was right, when he did intersect, it was like, so I ended up carrying 60% of the company's total revenue in my back pocket with what I was doing. And so you love me, but you hate me. And by the way, the feeling's mutual. I love what I'm doing, but I don't really love you either. So there's that. That was one of the biggest challenges of here I am, and I fell into this role in an industry that I wasn't particularly excited about. I needed the job because it was a recession and jobs were not very prevalent at the time. And I had this shot. And so I chose to make the most of that shot. I chose to learn. I chose to be a sponge. And I chose to embed myself. And as a result, I fell in love with this industry. And it was really cool. And it turned me way on. And it was interesting work. All the while, the biggest challenge was having a CEO that wanted me, that felt like he needed me, but hated me being there. And that was really, really difficult.
So what were some of the things that you had to do for yourself in your day-to-day, right? Because you still have to show up every day and do this job in these circumstances. So how did you do that?
So I've shared this advice with many people. The better, and I don't know if I would suggest all of this today, because this can lead to burnout.
Is this fair?
The more I worked and the better I did, the more he left me alone. So that was one of the ways that I dealt with it, right? Excellence will always create opportunities. That's the advice, right? Be excellent at what you do and it'll always create an opportunity. Don't do it at your own expense though. So for example, I was doing really big multi-million-dollar deals with really big Fortune 50 companies, and I traveled a lot. And so the noise of him became almost like the Peanuts principle, where it was like, womp, 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 womp.
Yeah.
I'm on a plane. If I'm in an executive meeting trying to figure out what we're doing together, it became not that big of a deal for me. And I looked at it as noise. And it's not that I ignored him. It's not that I didn't communicate with him. It's that I made it so clear that I was so good at what I did that there really wasn't much that you had to question. I don't know if that was the best thing to do or the worst thing to do. And I haven't really, actually, Kristi, I haven't really thought about this in a long time. It's a question nobody's asked me before. I would have to kind of reflect further on what would I do differently, because I made a lot of mistakes in that too. Because you know what that also did is it made me real cocky. And then I was what people talk about, the definition of a brilliant jerk, because I knew he needed me more than I needed him. Because then guess what happened? No more recession, right? And I knew what I'm doing, and people know about that. And so I had lots of opportunities that I could consider. And when I decided to leave the company was when the person that I decided to work for, when he decided to leave. Because we had this defining moment of a conversation where I had all these ideas and this different opportunity. I remember going to dinner, and my boss spent time with me, helping me think about this dinner. It was just the CEO and I. And I remember approaching the dinner saying, we haven't always had the easiest path. And I'm really excited about what I'm doing here and I want to stay here. And the way that I see it is it's kind of like a partnership. We need each other to figure this out. And he stopped me, interrupted me and said, this isn't a partnership at all. Let me remind you, you work for me. And as long as you continue to do what you're doing, you'll have a job here. I resigned within 2 weeks.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
This is why I'm not naming any names. I'm not saying anything. No. People can't, I don't name and shame, but like, this is, you don't need to know who it is. Cause I'm sure they'll ask me, this always happens. Like, who are you talking about? It's like, it doesn't matter.
That's not the relevant part of this story.
Yeah. But yeah, that was a thing. And that was another moment where I was like Forrest Gump walking around all over the place, talking to my husband, being like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm not going to do this.
Now, I had to dig in there a little bit because I feel like I see a lot of folks and I hear from a lot of folks who are not happy in their work environments for a multitude of reasons, right? It could be a bad leadership. It could be toxic work culture, whatever the circumstances are. But I liked what you said about excellence creates opportunities. And I think that is something for people to just think about. Now, it doesn't need to be the same way that you approached it with overworking and burning yourself out, but there is something to be said about mastery, right? And I feel like not enough people focus on that and being excellent at the work they do and becoming a master of their discipline and their practice, because that is ultimately what will find you those big opportunities in the future. So I'm going to make that as the big takeaway for me personally coming out of that story. For those of you listening, if you enjoyed our episode, please rate, follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, subscribe on YouTube, connect with me on LinkedIn. Until next time, we'll see you soon.